Hello everyone and welcome back to another Wano deck deep dive. This time featuring my deck for the first Guards Moto division. As I played a bit around with this deck now, and I believe I have a pretty solid deck here. As we start in the logistics tab where we find our CVs for this deck. Belgiors, Chaikas, then 2 cards of supply, Ural, and a Gus. As we are not that artillery heavy, we don't need anything else here, so 2 cards of supply should get you through the game. Belgior and Shaika with 6 CVs should get you through the game as well, so your infantry and tank tab can focus on their jobs. And in the infantry tab, we have Reservisti here starting out, getting you a cheap BTR 60 PA, a really cheap APC with 50 cal. Great to push with your tanks to get shot at first or give fire support, detect enemy infantry in front of it. Also, that's great to push with your infantry as well. For 20 points, having a build APC with a 50 cal is fantastic, even when it is reservist. Then we have a Conquers, which comes in a BTR 60 PA as well, to still 20 points, as an armored transport, and a pretty fast one at that as well. And you get your classic Conquerors missiles. And then we have our 2 MP2 options, the Motostralki and the Hulmajiki, to get a good couple of the good IFVs. Then we get some cheap ISVs with the Motostralki, and then we RPG 7 VS in the classic BMP1 or 65 points. You get a decent infantry with decent RPG launcher and the BMP1. 5 points cheaper for 2 less AP on the rocket launcher is really nice. So the Motostralki RPG 7 VS, really nice squad there. And then the Motostralki Medis coming in the normal gas, because the BTR 60 PB not that efficient, and having a unit that can sell its gas truck and just hold the flank with the Medis is totally what you want out of these guys as well. There is a point for 30mm grenade launchers in this deck, but I feel like this deck is playing mobile enough and has enough firepower with the BTRs that you don't really want to get this, because you can't afford the slots here. You could take it instead of the one of the 2 BMP2 cards, but I feel like you want the IFVs there instead. So after the nerf, I took out the Plamia and replaced that here with a bit more infantry in transport. Battery, we get the Acacias. Acacias pretty good at doing their job with veterancy, so that's why we take the 2 cards here. You could go for one option like this as well. There is a good reason to do it like this in this deck. That is, of course, to smoke up for your tanks to push. So especially in tournament games, you might want to put up the 120mm mortars. I enjoy my Acacias actually killing stuff a bit more. I'm not the biggest fan of corner smoking. Like, it is a decent strategy, obviously, but usually if you have to rely on it, you start to crutch on it too much, and with this division, you usually want to end the game before it comes to that point. So 2 Acacias that actually can eliminate the ATGMs in front of your tanks and in front of your infantry is more important in my eyes than having the corner smoke of the mortars. Then we come to the tank tab, and here we start with 2 really strong defensive units, especially with the current penetration. That likely will change soon again, but currently for 95 points you get 90 penetration on the main gun and 18 penetration on the missile with the router, so we take the router, as this is a fantastic weapon system to stop enemy pushes. Tanks can't hold up 1v1 against this anymore, because they only hit it with 8G damage, but the 19 pen against any medium tank will be enough to just murder them. Is decent as fire support against enemy infantry that tries to cross to the open field as well. So on the flank, this is fantastic. And a bit more agile is the attacker with the 25 penetration. Good enough to stop any tank out there as well. One-shots any IFV. A lot of medium tanks have to fear it as well. As up to 11 frontal armor, you still one-shot. So really, really scary. T55 Ace, for example, you just outright kill. So the Sturm Attacker with its great range and good penetration, fantastic weapon system as well. And then you take, I take 3 cards of the normal T72 without the smoke, and the T72 with the extra 70 frontal armor here at same veterancy level. You usually want to mix one of these with 2 or 3 of these, so that this one with the 17 frontal armor goes first and takes the fire, but the rest can focus on dealing the damage. As you want to play quite aggressive, taking them at 2 vet still makes sense, even though they don't get extra rate of fire, but getting the accuracy, getting the better aim time still makes sense. And also being able to keep on fighting and not getting routed because you don't have smoke, so losing control is basically the end of the unit completely. And then we have the T72 AV, which we take with 1 vet. These guys have smoke, and they can be quite nice as well. Like, you can also mix one of these with the 15 frontal armor ones quite nicely, and then also be able to smoke for the whole gang. So both of these here being mixed with the normal T72s do really well. And then we have the recon tab. The solid recon tab. You get the BRM 1K for the tank pushes, extra smoke as well. BRM 1K here just around for the smoke, kinda. The BRDM 2 I really enjoy again now with the higher availability and the lower price point as opening vehicles again. For 35 points, 3 of them just being able to run over enemy infantry positions quite quickly and so on. The BRDM 2 doing its job again, and pulling off recon helicopters and all of that nice shenanigans. Redvedka BTR 60PB with the mod Redvedka coming around to get some damage on to, or get some fighting capabilities with some decent fire support to win against enemy recon infantry and get the guys to the front line quite quickly. The BTR 60 not having smoke is obviously a big deficit, but it's also relatively affordable. And you can leave the Modrush Redguard behind and move the BTR with your tanks or your other BTR's plops to get a bit of optics around as well. And then just a normal Redguard for the flanks, for the spotting, where you want to spot for your routers or so. Really, really helpful as well to just have some cheap recon running around in the deck. Then we go into the AA tab, where we get the OSA, the Pre-user, and the Eagler. And the OSA here is the key unit for the backline of your AA, but the Pre-user and the Eagler can push forward. I'm always on the edge of between having the Pre-user in and just rotating in a second card of OSAs. So the Pre-user with its reliable damage can still be really nice, plus Pre-users and OSAs also work nicely together, with the OSA getting one hit out and the Pre-user dealing some reliable damage and finishing off the job, quite often against planes and against helicopters. So the combination here is pretty nice to have, plus the Pre-user just being a good bit cheaper can be nice on a flank with a tank push where you just need a bit of anti-helicopter to get around, and the Eagler, you still want the man-pets team in your deck to be able to hide in buildings and so on and catch enemy planes flying low and enemy helicopters off guard. Then in the helicopter tab, we have all the Attacker helicopters. These Attacker missiles are just so gnarly, so having helicopters that can bully all kind of tanks of them is fantastic as well. You want to be careful that you have enough air and enough OSAs around to protect these pretty expensive helicopters, because enemy suicide planes can be pretty efficient against them. You don't just want to get them blown out uh, into pieces, but you can do that quite efficiently here as well. And then in the air, we have MiG-25 PD as the long-range AA, because you want to be able to keep up with the enemy fighters. So having 2 parts of these, you often want to go up in pairs, if possible in triplets. As soon as you hit 3 of these at the same time, the enemy will always be stunned down and usually also get killed by your long-range missiles. So that's the dream. Yeah, having 2 at least out usually is key. so that the enemy still usually gets pushed back. And then we have some SU-17 cluster bombers in case the enemy has any heavy tank that you struggle with at a specific position, and rocket planes because they can reliably kill helicopters, which your MiG-25s cannot, and they also can reliably kill ATGM positions, which are a menace for you as well, and they come with 3 per card, so that's why we get the SU-17s here in this point. Strengths and weaknesses. Obvious strength is the efficient, aggressive combined arms that you get with cheap reservisty, cheap BMP-1s, cheap T-72s, relatively affordable recon around, a relatively affordable AA, and a cost-efficient fighter. Like that gets you some nice push power. So number 2 is the strong defensive tools in form of the attackers and the routers that you can rely on the flanks, so you can split the tasks. Half of the map is super well defended, the other half can attack really well. Jumping between the two is not as easy. We will come to that. And then the last strength, I would say, is a pretty solid all-rounder recon and support in general as well, with the weaknesses of the deck being the lack of a 2275 meter range tank, meaning that you always have to be the one pushing in with your tanks, especially as most of your tanks come without smoke as well. So you still have to find the aggression in the matchup. The lack of long range AA and not having a coop or a book, meaning that you still have to be careful that your tanks don't get cluster bombed or so, and that if you lose the MiG-25s, you might just get air bullied. Like, that's a big problem as well, especially as your short is still radar AA, both the OSA and the BUSA. So that's a problem there too. And then the last one is the lack of forward deployment. For an aggressive deck like this, having any kind of forward deployment, even if it's just a GSR recon unit with forward deployment, would have been nice. Not having that, meaning that you want to be aggressive but still have to do the extra step early on for that, is a bit of a weakness as well. But the division can live with that. It has enough going for it. It's for sure a pretty solid deck at the moment, especially after the Ruta buff. So I would likely see it around A tier. Let me know down below how you feel about the deck currently, what you would build different. See you all in the next one.